to the Simply His Coffee Shop. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a little bit of a different panel up here today because we are going to be talking about our summer and what has happened with camps. A few weeks ago, we did do an update that was filmed on the Skywatch TV set, and Joe told some really incredible stories. If you did miss that, please go back and watch that because that was a phenomenal update and did explain some of what has happened with our camps at Whispering Ponies and how our summer became completely different than what we expected it to be. But in case you haven't heard about that, I'll just give you a little bit of a story on what happened right before summer camps hit. We found out that our insurance company dropped us because we had to renew, every single year we have to renew our insurances and everything. And before the renewal actually happened, they sent us a letter like six weeks or so before summer camps actually were scheduled to happen that said, hey, we're not going to insure you anymore, so you need to find new insurance. Well, if you know anything about insurance, and especially commercial insurance and specialized insurance for camping, it's impossible to get it in that kind of a time frame. But we still went ahead and we were very diligent in looking and calling. We've had like so many different brokers looking at insurance for us, and a few of them had even told us, no, you should be fine. Go ahead and still plan on having camps, and we're confident that we will be able to get you guys some kind of insurance. And so we're, okay, Lord, whatever it is that you have, we'll keep planning like we're going to have camps. We're going to plan like we're going to be moving forward and we're going to get this insurance. And it kept not happening. And at one point we had an insurance company say, yes, we should be able to, but then they had questions, about the rock wall and the zip line and things like that. Well, it's not up to our standards. We're like, okay, well, just insure the rest of the camp and don't write those on the insurance policy. And we just won't use those this year because we just still really, really want to have camp. Everything else can be covered. But they still fell through, and we're still looking to find. We do have some basic building insurance now, finally. So the buildings are at least covered for storm damage and some things like that. So we're very thankful that we at least have that. But we still do not have insurance. So this is also a prayer request. Please pray that we can get coverage for our camp so that by next year we're 100% ready to go. We can have camps come. So because, of course, we didn't have insurance, we were unable to run camps at our facility this year. So I wasn't able to do food service. The animals weren't being used. It's just been very devastating for all of us because this is literally what we look forward to every year. We count down to camping season, like, okay, camping season's over. Okay, now for next year, and we're already pre-counting down to next year. So we've been very sad that we couldn't do it, but God has still opened many, many doors, even for us as Whispering Ponies staff and Skywatch TV staff, to be able to go and help some of the camps because, again, the Lord still has been in control of everything that has gone on with all of the camps. And most of them have been able to find other facilities that were at the very last minute able to host them for camp. So many of our camps have been able to find other camps that have been able to really quickly fit them into their schedule and provide for them, which has been
a miracle.
Exactly, a big miracle.
Because there are no campgrounds available at the drop of a hat like that.
No.
But thankfully and miraculously, our groups have temporarily found other places to continue what they do. And that has twisted things for us because we got to do something on the backside that we've never been able to participate in. So I guess that's kind of what our topic is today.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Just again, updating you guys on where we are at with our insurance and what has happened with camps. And if you did miss that update that Joe had talked about, go back and watch that, because that was just a really incredible update on what is going on. And he tells some of his own stories, because obviously he's not here today with us. But Kate and Nita are, and they have some incredible stories of what has happened for them this year as well. So, Kate, because we weren't running summer camps this year, what were you able to do in place of all of this?
Yeah, so I remember whenever the insurance was first dropped, and I was devastated because I work and train the animals all year long.
Right.
Because I'm the animal manager over the ranch and everything. And I was absolutely devastated, that we couldn't run our own camps. But then you were talking to me whenever we had talked to the directors of the first camp that always comes every year, and they were telling us that they would maybe need a counselor. And so you were telling me that I was maybe going to be able to be a counselor.
Right.
And I was so excited for that. That was one of the coolest things that I ever got to do. So if you don't know, there's like counselors, and then there's support staff, and the counselors are the ones that stay with the kids 24/7.
Yep.
And the support staff are kind of there just as the in-between, for the 2 deep rule.
Extra help.
Extra hands-on. So I had a co-counselor and 4 girls that was in my cabin. And I've actually been able to be a counselor twice now. And each time I had 4 girls in my cabin. Both weeks were absolutely amazing, and I have lots of memories from both camps.
Well, and explain, too, how being a counselor is completely different than what you normally do for the summer. Because some of our viewers may not know what's so different about being a counselor versus what you normally do during the summer.
Yeah, so usually I am on the facilitator side, which I'm usually helping harness kids for the rock wall or belaying on the rock wall. Same with the zip line, helping harness in the zip line, or sending kids down from the crow's nest, which is the little balcony at the top of the zip line. And my main job that I usually do when we're running camps is I'm the animal manager. So I'm helping with the horse carts and the painting of the ponies and the animal encounter. So, we have alpacas and goats and sheep and cows and mini horses and mini donkeys that the kids get to interact with. And so usually whenever I'm working summer camps, I only get to really just briefly be with the kids. It's almost more like, when you're a counselor, you get like 1 week of more of an intimate hands-on relationship there with the kids, while normally I'm used to very brief interactions, but for an entire summer.
Right.
And so, I still have tons of stories just, prior to being a counselor and everything, just, with the horses and at the rock wall, and amazing experiences there. But it was a very different perspective being a counselor, where you are in it and you are with the kids the entire day. There's not one moment that you're not there, except for there's like 2 times during the day that you get what they call counselor relief, and that's when the support staff, which my sister, she was support staff, would step in and give you a break. And usually that would be, 1 in the morning and then 1 before bed. So it was an awesome experience. I loved every single child that I was over. So the first camp, we only had 1 girl in my cabin that was returning. The other 3 were brand new. And they were all the older girls, so they were all 4 graduates. But one of the girls, she had actually been coming to camp for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And so she actually had recognized me from the rock wall and the zip line and the horses. And so that was really interesting. And she would ask me, updates on the animals and everything. And so I was able to talk to her about the animals. And then the second week that I was able to be a counselor, all 4 of those girls had returned, and they all 4 had remembered and recognized me from the horses. And they all had like a million questions about animals and how they were all doing and everything.
Well, and that's one of the cool things, too, is because with the second group, you had 2 brand new counselors that were with you. So you kind of had a leg up on them to a small degree because the girls all already knew you because of the interactions that they had with you in previous years of you helping with the rock wall or the zip line or the animals and things like that. So that was a really cool experience, though, because we've talked about how that was completely different because you're being their counselor, which is totally different role, but then you already had this relationship a little bit built up because they had seen you before. So you were already set up in a way to even be there more for them just because you kind of already knew who they were and had had experiences. And actually, I want to go back to your first camp because I think that's a really cool story because you had Maggie, who you guys had nicknamed, and we've actually talked about her a few years ago.
Yeah, if you go back into the
Mega Maggie.
Skywatch archives, you can find my dad telling stories about Mega Maggie on the zip line and on the rock wall. She was just scaling everything. It was amazing. But she was one of the girls in my cabin, and so I spent all week with her. That was really awesome. But also there is a difficult side to having the older girls in your cabin because all 4 of the girls that I spent all week with were graduates, which means that they had aged out of royal family, so they will not be able to come back for next year of camp unless if they're able to find a teen reach, which is the sister association to royal family that takes in those teens after they age out of royal family. So unless if we see her there, and then one thing that I was pouring into the kids is that I kept telling them, because they all really enjoyed being there at camp and they were all, teary-eyed and everything whenever they had to leave. And it was at the end of the week and everything. But I kept telling them, the secret to coming back to camp is to come back as a counselor.
Right.
Yeah.
And so Maggie, she promised me that she's going to be coming back as a counselor. And I mean, all the girls did, but specifically Maggie.
They'll be back.
That one hits a little bit different because I've watched this little tiny girl every year, come back and come more and more out of her shell and
become more confident.
Exactly.
So a week at camp can make a huge difference for these kids.
It really can.
And especially if they're able to come back for, the next few years of royal family and being able to be in a stable enough place that they're able to come back every single year because then the counselors know, the directors know who they are. And it just makes it that much sweeter because then they know what to expect. They know what's going to happen at camp. And a lot of these kids are counting down camp just like we are.
Yes.
We count down to camp, but these kids count down to camp too. It's like, I can't wait till next year. As soon as they get home, okay, when is next year's camp? What's going to happen for next year? Am I able to go? What's my situation going to be? Because for some of these kids, this is the only stable that they have to a degree. So it's an incredible thing that they're able to do.
One thing that I thought was interesting that I had witnessed throughout that first week of camp is that I had 3 girls that had never been to royal family before, and I don't even know if they had actually been to really any other summer camps in general. But it was interesting because Maggie, she had been to royal family before, and so she already knew what a lot of the next, upcoming events were going to be. It was like she knew the inside scoop of what all was going to go on, for the birthday party and for the tea party. She's like, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. She's like, but it's going to be awesome and so fun.
So cool.
And then, one of the other girls, she had, the kind of this hard outer shell or this hard exterior that she had put on, but you could tell that throughout the week she was starting to, soften a little bit more, and she was, learning that all the people there were purely there to love on her throughout the week and to try and just give her the best week that we possibly could. And so, the too cool for school kind of attitude, was able to soften throughout the week. And I just thought that was something very interesting. You had 2 totally different contrasts between Maggie and Lucille, because Maggie's been here for the last 4 years and she knows what it's about. And then you have Lucille who, is a little bit nervous and, wants to put on.
She doesn't know what to expect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I just thought that was something really interesting. And also because, they were all really close friends, that first week. she was able to feed off of Maggie's excitement a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so whenever, Maggie was super excited and all about everything, then the other girls didn't have to be, too cool
As
for
nervous.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as nervous. So I thought that was something that was really interesting.
Yeah, because foster kids, they can read each other too, and they know that even if their backgrounds are completely different, they know that they know what they're going through, again, even if it's different. So for them to get those cues from Maggie, oh, it's going to be exciting. Oh, just wait and see. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. They're going to trust her a little bit more immediately because, one, she's gone through the Royal Family Kids camp, so she already knows what to expect, but she's also been in their position, and so she's not going to be excited about something that would be scary or that would be harmful to them, so they're going to trust her excitement of, hey, guess what's coming? It's going to be so epic, kind of a thing. And then you were able to be a big support staff, especially for the first group. So tell us about what your experience was between the first group and the second group that you got to do with being a support staff and then doing the drama for the second group.
Yeah, well, I wasn't quite old enough to be a counselor yet.
Yeah.
But I was old enough to be support staff, which I was just extra help for whoever needed it. I mostly helped out with the boys with the first group, though, because they only had 2 support staff there. And I needed to be over there for more help because they had quite a few.
Rambunctious boys.
Yes.
Well, and your daddy was helping out with that, too, so you were able to help him a little bit more, too, with corralling the boys.
So I ended up helping out with the boys a lot, and that was very much of an experience for me. They were super sweet, but goodness, it was crazy. I remember just them at the rock wall. I mean, they all were like cheering each other on. Like none of them were fighting or anything. They were all like, "Yeah, go woohoo!" Which I thought that was kind of cool because I mean they're boys. They're gonna be fighting and
competing.
Stuff like and competing. But no, they were super sweet to each other, and they were just cheering each other on for all of the activities. I remember we were in activities because I was helping with activities one time, and this little boy, he was at the bracelet making station with beads and pipe cleaners, and I remember that one of the counselors noticed that he was taking out letters of my name, and he goes, "Who's that for?" He goes, "No one?" And then he like runs away. It was so funny. And then like 5 minutes later, he comes back and he gives me this little heart made out of pipe cleaners, and at the end was my name. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the cutest thing ever. And so I put it on my name tag, and I carried it around all week. And that little boy, he was graduating too, and Dad all week was just riling him up with like, come on, you have to come back as a junior counselor, like you have to come see me. He's like counting down the years. He's like, in 3 more years I'm coming back and I'm being a junior counselor. And so Dad called him Counselor Dale all week because Dad liked to give all of the boys like different nicknames, slash affirmation, yeah. He connected with one of the boys, though, that was one of the older boys, and he connected with him all week. And that boy just loved my dad so much. By the first day, they just clicked, and they hung out all week, and it was just the cutest thing ever. I didn't get to have much experience with the girls, but what I saw, they were all just super sweet. And I did do counselor relief in Kate's cabin. I relieved her, so I got to hang out with her girls a lot. And
so what is counselor relief at night? What does that mean? Counselor
relief is because the counselors are with the kids 24/7 all day.
And all night.
And all night, just with them. And
they're sleep talking.
Yes, and falling off their bunks, and it's just like crazy.
So they don't get much sleep.
No, they don't. So counselor relief is for support staff to go into the counselor's cabin with all of the kids, and there at least has to be 2 because 2 per cabin is just
of course,
general rule. So me and another person, it'd be different each night, so I wouldn't get the same cabin. But me and another support staff would go into a cabin and tell the counselors that they are good to go. They can take showers. They can go just rest, take a nap if they wanted. Like, just
make phone calls. Or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that would go on for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So usually around like 9:45 to 10:45. Then the counselors would come back and support staff would get their break or slash like shower or do whatever. But yeah, I do remember doing support staff for Kate's cabin, which was so funny too. We had to like make the girls go to bed, like tuck them and zip up their like sleeping bags because they were just crazy all over the place. But one thing for me is that I loved, because one of the girls in Kate's cabin loved painting people's nails. Loved it. Like, that was the thing she wanted to do 24/7.
Was that Heather?
Yes, it was Heather. She was just like, oh my gosh, Nita, can I paint your toenails? Can I paint your nails? Please, please, please. I'm like, okay, sure. And then Maggie wanted me to paint her nails, and all of the girls, I ended up painting all of the girls' nails. And Maggie's like, now you have to do my toes. I hope you know that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's wonderful. I'll do that too. It was super funny. And then the girls really liked it when we sang to them to get them to sleep. So it'd be lights out. We'd turn off all the lights. Keep one on if like one of the girls was
like a nightlight type thing. Yeah.
Usually the bathroom, and we just crack the door. But then the girls loved it when we sang to them, and so we would sing like the camp songs to them, and it was super cute. And
did the kids recognize you as well, like they did with Kate?
Yes. Honestly, a lot of the boys, they were like, wait a second. I know you. Are you the one that harnessed me for the rock wall? Like, the boys noticed me for harnessing them more than they did the animals, other than like the girls. And so for the first week, all of the boys are like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to Whispering Ponies Ranch next year so I can see you and you can harness me for the rock wall and zip line again. And I'm like, yes, you have to come back next year and see me. Which the first week was a really great experience for me too. The second week was very much of an experience too. I mean, it's kind of cool and to see how different each camp works.
Yeah.
Like the first week, totally different than the second week. And I was put on the drama team for the second week, which that was really fun because I like doing that kind of stuff. I mean, I am a dancer, so I do like acting. So I got put on the drama team, which I loved doing, but it did take up a little bit of a sacrifice because we'd have to wake up early in the morning to maybe practice, and then late at night too, so after counselor relief, which I ended up doing counselor relief every night that night.
On top of drama.
On top of drama, which was okay because it was kind of cool too because they put me in a cabin with the girls as extra help too.
Right.
So I kind of got that feel of being like a counselor and support staff for the second week. But I ended up doing counselor relief for my cabin. And then after I got done, which was like 10:45, 11 at night for counselor relief, I'd have to go back to the chapel to practice drama, which would go on till like 12 at night, which was really tiring. But
yeah, she was not sleeping.
I was like, the first night I woke up and I'm like, Dad's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't drink coffee, but I wanted to drink coffee that week. but yeah,
a shot of coffee.
Yeah.
We'd do our drama practice up until like 11:30, 12 at night sometimes. Then I'd very carefully sneak back into the cabin and go to bed. I don't want to wake any of the girls up, but it was kind of hard because all of the springs and like the mattresses were like
Super. Yeah.
like every time you moved, and so every time I moved I was like, did I wake one of the girls up? I hope not. Oh my gosh. But the girls ended up sleeping fine, and they did great each week. And yet again, for the second week, I did spend a little bit more time with the boys just to give them extra help. I did connect with one of the tiny little boys. He was 5 years old. He was the cutest thing ever. Jasper, oh my God.
yeah.
I love him so much.
He
didn't
cute.
know my name. So he'd be like, hey, best friend, waving at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just love him so much. He'd see me, he'd run up and give me a big hug. He wouldn't leave my side all week. It was amazing. He's permanently stuck in my brain forever.
Yeah.
He was such a
One that was
sweetheart.
his first year too.
It's his first year. He was only 5 years old. First day he turns to me, he goes, "I'm literally 5." And I'm like, that is literally awesome. And we just kind of clicked like since then. One of the middle-aged boys, his name was Evan. He was quite the little guy. I mean, he was crazy all week, but he listened to me for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, I tell him to do something, he'd be like, "But," and I'm like, "No, you need to do that." Like, if he hurt someone, I'd be like, "No, you need to go apologize." He's like, "But they walked away." And I'm like, "Well, you need to walk over there and apologize." And he'd be like, "Fine." Or like, if I told him to pick something up because he made a mess, he'd like pick it up. But he liked to listen to me, and some of the other boys did. And they were a little bit more hands-on with each other
Yes, they
for
were.
the second one. So there was a fight outbreak every day, more than once.
It was kind of Fight Club.
That was a fight club every day with the boys. So you did have to intervene. But it wasn't like they were trying to hurt each other. They were just trying to like wrestle and play a fight most
more
of the
playful.
time. Yeah, more
But
playful.
then, of course, it sometimes would turn into more of an
Get a little
escalation
rough,
just
yeah.
because
because
these
then it's
kids
like-
don't know how to put the brakes on because they've been allowed / almost forced to have these big reactions and these big emotions because they have not been taught, okay, if you're feeling upset, take a breath, walk away, take a step back, it's going to be okay. But they haven't learned that, so their fight or flight instinct is so strong that if they just barely get hurt, then they're angry and they're fighting, and their fight is what comes out more than their flight.
Yeah.
So
I
they're
noticed
not
that
always
with
wanting to
one of
run
my
away.
girls. I noticed that with one of my girls actually on the second week.
Mm-hmm.
She was the oldest one in the cabin, and she would try and fight and wrestle with the boys a lot too. She wanted in on it, but you could just tell that she's got, anger stemming from something
Yeah, of course.
that's been going on in her home life that is, almost like she just wanted to egg everyone on, get everyone to fight, and then she wanted to join
and she
in
started
on it.
to get the other girl that they were buddies. She started trying to get the other girl to wrestle with the boys too, and she ended up being successful. So now she had 2 people in her cabin that were trying to fight with the boys, and that was crazy. I do want to say though that Fridays are always hard, no matter what place you are. Like even for us on like the more facilitator side is still hard. I cry every Friday. Horrible. I'm depressed. And then Fridays were a lot different and a lot more hard. Both of the weeks that we were actually doing camps, like counselors and support staff, because we actually had that connection with each of the kids every single day, 24/7, just all week. We were with the kids. We were experiencing things you can't even like explain.
Yeah.
Well, and as a facilitator, our job as a facilitator is not to be the counselor.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the idea for the counselor is that they get a chance to bond with those kids.
Yeah.
So as a facilitator, we kind of try to keep ourselves
A distance.
at a distance so we don't get that one-on-one.
We call counselors.
Yes.
Like, counselor, get over here. We need help.
Exactly. If,
Yeah.
if there's an issue that the kids are having, we have to call for the counselors to take care of that.
Right.
As facilitators, we don't get a chance to interact at the same level.
Yeah.
Right.
We do what we do to make what we're facilitating successful.
Exactly.
And so that limits the amount of involvement we get to have.
Yeah.
Now, as support staff, there was the first camp that we got to go to that they incorporated me as the grandma of the camp.
Yeah.
And I think I talked about that at the last update that we had. And it was a different role for me to play also. And it was amazing how, like Nita's talking, that Friday that hit, it was a little bit
It was
harder
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
on that Friday than it has been because these kids were calling me grandma and blam, and they knew I was the camp grandma. And one particular young lady, I think it was the second camp, just kind of immediately took a liking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was making me little crafts, and I I have not had that before. It was very cute.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was a different experience for all of us. And I mean, we've done these camps for years, years as a facilitator, even
Yeah.
before moving to where we are now. Our backstory is when we found out about this, we were facilitators, and we had that limitation.
Yeah.
This was our first year to really engage and be able to one-on-one
Yep.
talk with these kids and kind of get to know them a little deeper than
Yeah.
animal encounter or zip line or
Yeah.
the food line.
Yep.
You know,
For sure.
the birthday parties at a distance. You got to interact. We got to watch these kids unwrap everything.
We got
and-
to be a part of
Yes.
like the royal brunch that they did the first
Yes.
camp. We got to be a part of the talent show.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
one of the boys, I saw him doing it was the kid that clicked with my dad. His name was Steve, and Dad called him Big Steve all week because he was just so big. I mean, his personality was so big. And I saw him doing a plank outside, so I joined him. He's like, wait, the talent show's tonight. Will you do a plank contest with me? And I'm like, yes, of course I will. And so we had a plank contest for the talent show. He went on for like a minute, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. What? It was so crazy. And then there was this one little boy. His name was Isaac. He was only like 6. He was in the little boy cabin. He was the funniest little man ever because you would be like, hey, Isaac, what's up? And you do like a silly face to try to get him to laugh, but he didn't want you to know that he was going to laugh. So he'd kind of go,
Pucker
or
up.
kind of make a too cool for you face, like that. And then like you'd turn around and you'd see him like kind of smile. And it was funny. But I didn't realize how connected we actually got because he was very quiet. He didn't speak to anybody other than his like older brother, and I didn't realize by Friday how much he actually cared and how much like we actually clicked and
Right.
how much of an impact I actually got. And so he saw me getting like all teary-eyed and like started crying, and we were on the stairs because they were clearing out their bunks, packing everything up.
Getting ready to load the
Yep.
bus.
And he saw like I was like starting to get like I was
Emotional?
starting to get emotional. I was starting to cry because I'm like, I don't want these kids to leave. I want to do this forever. This is like the only thing I ever want to do. I wish like I didn't have to wait a whole year to do
Right.
this again. And so I was sitting on the stairs, and he walks over and he sits by me and he just starts giving me a hug. Like, didn't say anything, just gave me a hug. Didn't let go. And one of the other girls, she asked me to sign her book, so I did, and I got up. One of the counselors that was in the same cabin as them, he sat by him, and he turns to him, he's like, move. I want her to sit here. That's what I was like told one of the other counselors. And I was like, I thought the counselor was like waving at me because he was kind of like going like this, so I go, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, he's telling me to come sit right here. I was like, okay, that makes more sense. So then I go and I sit down by Isaac, and he just starts giving me a hug again. And he wanted me to sit by him on the bus ride. I ended up getting to go on the bus
Yeah.
with the kids after they left camp. And he gave me a hug the whole entire ride. And
Back
it was
to the
like,
church.
I'm like, why are you doing this to me? This is making me so sad. I wish I could just take you home. Oh, it's so sad, but he was so cute. And those boys were just so sweet. And the girls, too. Like, they weren't ever trying to be mean to each other. They
Yeah.
were always supportive. They were always trying to make crafts for each other and be friends.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really special. And for the second group, Fridays were still tough.
Yeah.
And Jasper did the same thing Isaac did. He was just giving me a hug. He goes, I don't want to leave. I'm like, I don't want you to leave either. I'm like, hey, but you know what? You have to come back next year, okay? And you'll get to see what my place looks like. And then you'll get to go on other things like the rock wall and the zip line. And he's like, oh my gosh. I was telling him about our place, and he's like, thought it was the most coolest thing he's ever heard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to come back and see it next year, and you have to come back and see me. So I really hope he gets to come back.
Yeah.
And some of the other boys that were graduating, I watched them since they were like
Yeah, a couple
beginning.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was cute that the kids, some of them remembered the animals and
Yeah.
were asking about them.
Yeah, by name.
Yes.
By name.
Just
By
thought
name,
that
yeah.
was cute.
Yeah.
Like Dale, he's like, I miss Diamond so much. I miss riding on his car, and it's like making me so sad we're here. Is your grandma bringing them? Like, oh no, I'm so sorry, buddy. You won't be able to see them this year. He's like, man.
Well, we probably need to stop this one right here, but we do have more, so please join us again next week because we haven't even really been able to talk to Mom about her experience as being Grandma Blam because she got to be the camp grandma for the week, which she'll explain to you was a completely different experience for her and how that affected her and everything. So please join us again next week as we continue this discussion. We will see you next week in the Simply His Coffee Shop.